Oh boy. I'm going live. Not any particular reason why I'm doing this live stream. I just kind of felt like it. And why not, right? So, let's see where my mic is set up. I'm just trying to kind of check levels and make sure things are right. See how this works out. Um, yeah, let's see here. I'm still getting set up, so I had this set up and then it disappeared on me. So let's see what happens. I had this set up and then it disappeared on me. So let's see what happens. So let's see what happens. Okay. Looks like it's working a little bit. I think I need to adjust a few things here. Let's turn the air cleaner down and drop out. I guess I'll EQ this mic a little bit so that it isn't quite so aggressive with the low end. We'll turn that on. That should hopefully help. Yeah. So maybe give this just a little gate. Alright, so hopefully this gate will help a little bit. For whatever reason, my threshold and gate settings are missing. There we go. Alright, let me scroll back to the YouTube channel and see if I can monitor myself for a split second and see what it sounds like. And I'll play something real quick. Myself for a split second and see what it sounds like. And I'll play something real quick. Myself for a split second and see what it sounds like. All right. Okay. All right. So that is how it is. I can switch to this camera here, so it'll be a little bit more. Yeah, I think it'll just look a little bit better. Yeah, hopefully that'll be clear enough. And I have the chat window up here. So I'll get started and dive into what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just creating some sounds using the Omega 8. Good Lord, that's loud. Yeah, so the Omega 8 analog to analog polysynth. It's fairly basic as far as, what features it has inside of it. It's basically a vintage analog synth. I mean, at this point, they're, God, I think roughly 25 years old, something like that. Which I remember when this thing first came out, it was a pretty big deal when it first came out, and it was kind of one of those synthesizers that was very much a dream synth of mine, and I got the opportunity to buy one about maybe 2 years ago, something like that. And so I bought one, and I really, really like it. So I like creating sounds on it, and that's what I'm doing today. So I'm gonna dive in and just kind of, as I go through it, I'll talk about some of the things that I like about it, some of the things to watch out for when programming on it, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat because it just keeps me company while I'm nerding out on the synthesizer. So first things first, what I'm doing here is you'll notice down here there's a utility button. If you press that, you get these options that come up. Channel, which is your MIDI channel, of course. Tune is not what you think it is. Now, you can turn tune, and it's not going to instantly tune the synthesizer. There is a parameter for that. It's over here where the mute tune is. But what this actually does is, you know, they might have been one of the first ones to do this. So you know how there's like a vintage knob on sequential synthesizers, and for instance on the Hydrasynth you have the analog feel knob. That's essentially what this is, but it's doing that for a completely analog synth. And where, well, I say completely analog, we're talking about signal path. But anyway, um, so when you tune it to 90%, it gets it, roughly 90% of perfect tuning for what it can do. 95%, 98%, and 100%. Now, that all being said, none of those actually get there. Like, it's not really that in tune. When you have this thing at 100% full tune, there's still deviations all over the place with this thing. It just dials it in a little bit more strict. It tries to, at least, but it's still not perfect at all, which is fine. But they were one of the people who had the foresight early on to, when they create these tuning algorithms for these analog synths, to try to leave some slop in there. The slop, is just something that can help create analog sounds sounding beautiful. And so they had the foresight to say, hey, like, let's try to rein it in a bit, but let's leave it sloppy. Now, that being said, even though you can adjust that tune doesn't affect the entire synthesizer. That tune affects the oscillators, does not affect your filters. The filters on here actually have no real calibration like that. They're calibrated by hand, and it's all just analog trim pots on there. So yeah, that kind of is what it is. So I tend to leave it off, but on certain patches I'll turn that on. So let me give me just 1 second. I'm going to set something up here, and we'll take a listen to how it sounds raw. Run outside because my dogs got behind one of my gates. So here we are. We have that tune option, and then next to that is an init. So when you turn the init, it instantly initializes everything, jumps you out of that window, and here we are. So the first thing that we'll notice is it gives us two saw waves. Everything's really basic. We're going to go ahead and pitch things up a bit. All right, so now that we have the very basic two saw wave sound, we can also bring in the sub oscillator so you can hear that. I'm just letting you hear what an initialized patch sounds like on this thing first, and what the fundamentals are. And you'll notice that even with none of the tuning on, it sounds pretty dead on. And we'll take unison off so that you can hear it in poly. When you're in unison over here, you have options of how many voices you want that unison to be. So if I press the keyboard button, All right, I can go in here. Unison is 2 voice. I can bring it to 4 voices, 6 voices, or 8. Or you can have it unison 1 voice, which is useful when you start doing multis and that sort of thing. So for now, I'm going to keep unison off. You can also change your octave, and this is for the octave range that the keyboard is going to play in. And then you have your multi-trigger for all your envelopes, whether or not you want them to trigger differently. So you can have different triggers for different envelopes, because you have 3 envelopes there. You'll notice that I move around the screen here by just pressing left and right, up and down. I'm very out of shape. Just chasing after my dogs right then, like, left me out of breath. So, anyway, going back to the oscillator section here. We're on this basic initialized patch. All I've done is pitch the oscillators up 2 octaves, just to give me some range to play with here. And you've got the sub oscillator here, which is just a basic square wave. And we can also, if I take everything out and you have just the sub oscillator on, you can hear that there. And then I can bring it in here. And of course, these oscillators are really quite nice. They have a nice full sound to them. None of the oscillators have a very, like, they don't sound like thin or like have, you know, it's just some oscillators sound like they have their low end energy is kind of like sucked out of them, especially when you start modulating them. These oscillators don't have that. For instance, if I use a triangle wave here and a triangle wave here and I sync them, all right? It sounds very full all the way through. Like some oscillators, I find, like, when you do that sort of thing, they just kind of like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they'll, they kind of just get really, like, nasally. So it's nice that you have that there. The downside of that is this synth, though you can do a high pass filter in it, it doesn't have 2 filters at the same time. And because of that, you know, you can't do like a high pass it into a low pass or anything like that. So it's a single filter affair when you get to the filter stage. So let's go back, and what we'll do here is I'm going to do 2 saw waves. We're going to do the very most basic of sound, right? So we've got 2 saw waves. We're going to detune it a little bit, but I want to also talk a little bit about the pitch here. So and I'm looking at my feed here. I swear, it looks like it's, hopefully that's just my feed here. It just doesn't look very high quality to me. I don't know. That says what it is. It is what it is, right? If I paid more money, I could have 1080p, but sorry, I don't stream like that, so I'm not paying extra. I already pay money for the streaming service as is. So here we go. So when you're in this oscillator screen, the pots that are on here, again, this is like a 20-something-year-old synthesizer. They're not the most accurate as far as like digital scanning. So when I start adjusting these controls here, I'm going to see if I can get it to do it. Like right now it's working fine to get to 24, right? But sometimes you'll go to like 23 and then you only to 25, and like you can't quite get right there. So sometimes you have to use this knob here, which will let you do incremental changes, and it kind of lets you get a little bit more accurate with that. Now, this is both oscillators at the same, you know, at the same pitch here, and you get slight drifting going on, not a lot. And you can see which voice I'm playing up top here. And they each drift slightly different. So you can hear the drift is still there, even though, you know, I don't have it detuned. Now, if I go into that utility area here where I go to tune. Let's turn that all the way up to 100% and listen to it. Slightest tiny bit of drift. A little bit more there. More on that one. That one's pretty dead on. So that's with it at its max tune of 100%. Just something cool to know about this synth when you're programming on it. And keep in mind, this one hasn't been calibrated in decades, and it's, you know, which is fine. I kind of do want to send it out to Studio Electronics in the future to just get some upgrades done. But point being is that even when it's at 100% tune, you're still going to have some drift there, which is kind of welcome in my opinion. Now back to the oscillators here, you'll see I have this tune parameter here. Now as I adjust this, we can tune up and down this way. So that's kind of like a master tune there, right? And then you can press edit again and you go to fine. Now fine tune here is actually your detune. And that's that kind of classic sound here. Now let's bring that sub oscillator in as well. And it's pretty beautiful sounding. Another really interesting thing about the way that this synth works is that you can have panning for each voice separately and modulate that panning as well, which is really interesting. So if you go into the panning section here, see the first page, I have everything at 0. If I press the pan button again, then you'll see everything says 7. And then if I press it again, 0. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just show you what this sounds like a bit here. We'll go really high. We'll take it up to 127, right? 0, and then we'll do maybe 60, 64, something like that. 0, and then we'll do, what do we want here? Maybe 32. 0, 24, right? So we're playing voice 8, which would be here, 0. Now 127, you'll notice we're all the way to the left. Oh, I have some MIDI stuff going on there, so I had to panic it. That happens as well. So again, now we're on voice 3, which is 64. And you'll notice that it's modulating. Now if I go to that next parameter here, I'm going to bring this up a good bit, right? And this is going to be that modulation between left and right, which is pretty wild. I'm not going to go exact because I don't feel like fiddling with it like that. I'll just go as quick as I can. If they're not all 100% on, oh well. So now you'll hear the modulation should be going left and right. Hopefully the stream is stereo. And when we go back to 1, we're going to get the full modulation. So if this stream is stereo, you should be hearing it left and right now, but I can't guarantee that YouTube is letting it stream stereo. All right, so you get the idea. Let's go ahead and, so it's position, rate, and depth. So now let's go ahead and go back and initialize this patch. Oh. Utility. There we go. And See, and now one of my oscillators just dropped out of tune. You'll see it's at 23 now. That's because the knob, again, it's kind of a low resolution, but you just tweak it a little bit, and now it's back to where it needs to be. So now we're good. Now, let's go into some of the filter stuff. The filter stuff is really interesting on this one. So these things come stock with essentially Oberheim SEM style filters on board, right? Meaning on the main board, on the main voice cards, they all have that SEM filter is there, right? It's all done discrete. It's not a chip. It's just all discrete circuitry, all through hole, very nicely done. Then they come also stock with Minimoog ladder filters in there as well. And the ladder filters are all on separate voice card. They're on boards that are all placed inside of there. Again, all through hole design, really nice. It looks very pretty when you open it up. I mean, the inside of this thing is absolutely packed. But what's cool about it is that they just sound so raw. So I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration of what these filters sound like on their own. So open all the way up here. We'll take the envelope amounts all the way down. And clean filter sweeping. Now let's give some resonance. Let's turn, sorry, I had unison on. We'll turn that off. And then resonance at full. I see Vincent's talking about the flowing locks. They're only getting longer and only sweeter. All right, so that is the SEM low pass filter on there, which sounds phenomenal. You can really stack that thing up against pretty much any Oberheim, and you'll be a very happy person. One really interesting thing about this, if you're trying to get SEM type sounds, or better yet, Oberheim 8 voice type sounds out of this, this thing does not technically support MPE, but I found a trick with it. When I was messing with my Hydrasynth in this, I really wanted polyphonic aftertouch control, and it doesn't support that. It does have aftertouch, but what I realized is, if you put a Hydrasynth into MPE mode, of course, MPE is each channel has its own voice, right? You can then program a multi on here and put each one of those multis on a different channel, so channel 1 through 8, and then set the mono aftertouch on each one of them, and then you have polyphonic MPE aftertouch on it by doing that. So you can get that kind of Oberheim 8 voice, things are all separate kind of thing, with the addition of having aftertouch per voice, which is pretty crazy. So super fun to do. Now let's move on to some more filters. One last filter sweep of this, just for comparison's sake. Bandpass. Again, you will get some stepping in here. Like if I really, if I go slow, you'll definitely hear stepping because the encoders are not crazy high resolution. So you get the harmonic peaks that come through there, but you also do get some digital step in the parameters, but that's fine. You get it on the vintage Jupiters and everything else as well, so, and Prophet 5 and all that. Even the modern Prophet 5 does it. For that matter, all the sequential synthesizers do it, except for the Pro 3 is the only sequential synth I know of that does not step when you sweep the filter. So that was the high pass. Now we're on the band reject, which is really great for making psychedelic sounds. When you start modulating the crap out of this. One of the things about band reject on a SEM style filter is when you bring the resonance up, it really makes it narrow, and so we'll go. So it makes it so narrow you don't really hear it. So it's best to have your resonance down on that, and you get that kind of phasery type sound. Filter topology on SEM. I don't know the correct term for it, to be perfectly honest with you. I just state variable, and then yeah, beyond that, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, so it's the classic SEM state variable filter, done quite accurate to the vintage synth. And then now we're into the mini filter, and I'm gonna switch between the mini and the SEM style so that you can hear the difference between the two, because it's pretty awesome. And of course, the mini filter is a ladder filter, a transistor ladder filter, 24 dB slope. Now, watch what happens when you bring up the resonance on this. This is one of the best sounding transistor ladder filters you'll ever hear. I'm going to bring the sucker up a good bit. Now, I'm going to leave it right there for a second, because that scream right there, I mean, that's like, and like, I'm going to step through the voices and you'll hear, like I said, so the tuning parameter on there, what's up, Brad? The tuning of this does not affect your filters, because the filters are all done by hand and not calibrated digitally inside of the synth. So even with the tuning all the way up, it's still going to go wonky from voice to voice. So check it out. Beautiful, right? So now when I switch between the mini and the SEM filter in here, quite different. Like, you know, notice that bass drop out. Just a beautifully contrasting difference between these two filters. And I know in this day and age, there's quite a few synthesizers now that use transistor ladder filter and SEM style filter in the same synth. But at the time that this thing came out, that was not being done. I don't think the Andromeda was out at that point. Because I feel like the Andromeda would be the only other one that really jumps to my mind that would have done it anywhere close to this time period. What year did the Andromeda come out? Let's look that up real quick. Releases. which Andromeda is another, like, I mean, really cool synthesizer. It's certainly, I feel like the Andromeda came out probably a couple years after. It looks like maybe 2002. Let me see. 2001 or 2002, somewhere right around there. The Sound on Sound review of it was 2001. Okay, and Brad from Isla Instruments is saying 2000, so I'm gonna take his word on that. And when did Studio Electronics Omega 8? See, now we're getting into nerd stuff and just like, yeah, gotta know. So yeah. So Brad is saying in the comments that it was the Andromeda was 2000 to 2010. And yeah, the Omega 8 was 2000. So yeah. Now the difference, of course, being between those two synthesizers, that the Alesis Omega or Alesis Andromeda, excuse me, they created their own custom chips that had the filters on there. So the Moog filter and the SEM filter were on the chip itself. Like it was a complete voice chip. Whereas on the Omega 8, it's all like through hole discrete circuitry. And they definitely have a totally different sound from each other, and they're both really cool synthesizers. Oh, you have Matt Johnson's Andromeda. That's very cool. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try not to be too jealous, but I'm jealous. So, moving forward on that, let me go back to that mini filter for a second. And let's see this here. See, my oscillator went out. So the envelopes are kind of a point of contention. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. So what Brad's pointing out is that the ladder filter in the Andromeda is not actually a Minimoog style filter. It was actually the 921B oscillator with the 904A filter, which is not the Minimoog ladder design. It's more the Moog modular ladder design, but I think they're pretty similar. But with some tweaks in there. But yeah, that's I always forget about that, man. But such a cool synthesizer, man. I know they have a lot of maintenance issues over the years, as far as they can have pots that go bad. Those chips, if those chips can go bad, then they're basically unobtainium, because they don't make those chips anymore. And from my understanding of the interviews that I've had with the people involved in that, the chip die to create the chips in the Andromeda basically just got worse and worse and worse until it was unusable. So yeah, like you won't be seeing those chips again. So the envelope section on here is kind of a point of contention on the Omega 8 with same with the Studio Electronics SE1. They were kind of known for having slow envelopes. I would say that that's true. The difference of them being slow versus some other synthesizers that are slow is, one, you can invert the envelope, and when you invert it, it kind of gets rid of the slowness. It's a trick that you can use when you're making percussion sounds on this synthesizer, which is pretty useful. But on top of that, I would say that they're not insanely slow. So let's drop this down. We'll give it resonant peak just so you can hear the raw envelope on the filter. So bring this up. So this is going to be no attack, decay, or release, just sustain on the filter. And you'll always hear a little bit of that liquidy spitting sound at the very beginning of the sound. I give it just a little bit of attack. And that's the longest attack. So let's take a quick listen to some decay here. We'll do it like so. So that kind of gives you an idea on how the speediness of these are. You can certainly do, you know, percussive sounds with this just like so. But really where you want to be with that is you hit the edit. Oh, let me go here. Sorry, edit in the filter. And it'll say invert. And when it's inverted, you can get that kind of click a lot easier. So yeah, super useful. Anyway, let's go back. And I'm just going to do some really basic stuff real quick, just to give you an idea on what the kind of basics are. What's up, Eric? Hopefully we can catch up and get some barbecue soon. Eric is my barbecue guru. So I'm going to do some really kind of like the fundamental stuff that I really like about this synthesizer. So you get that, just, it's so gooey. And as you play lower notes on this thing, just to kind of give an example here. I really hope that the bass is going to come through on this. And if you have a sub, I mean, like I can hear my sub and I know what it does when it goes below 20 hertz. That's definitely below 20 hertz. But the way the oscillators kind of stay together, they don't get all flabby and distorted, is really beautiful. And you can kind of, if you take the resonance down especially, and then when I switched back to the SEM, so yeah, just raw, basic analog sounds that just sound so good. As Head is saying, can you replace the filter boards? And yeah, that's the thing about this is So the SEM filter is built into the main board, but the Minimoog filters are on separate voice cards, and then you can buy other voice cards on top of that. So you can get a TB303 filter card for it. You can get ARP 2600 filters on it. You can get they now have a Jupiter 8 slash I believe it's a cross between a Jupiter and a Juno filter on there. Like you can get two different modes out of it. And CS80 filters. I do not have the CS80 or the Jupiter filters in here yet. I'm kind of between deciding if I want to do the Jupiter filters or if I want to do the ARP filters on there. Yeah, but this one has the SEM and the Moog. So you have the SEM is always going to be there, but then you have slots for 4 other filters per voice. So you could take out the Minimoog ones and put in other ones, or you could keep the Minimoog and put 2 other filters in there, excuse me. So it's the SEM and 3 other filter boards per voice. So yeah, and I talked to Mark, and Mark kind of talked me out of the ARP filter as well. I'm talking to Eric because I know Eric just bought a Omega 8 not all that long ago as well. And I get why they kind of talked me out of the ARP filters. Just because the ARP filter is not crazy different from the Minimoog filter. It's the Jupiter filter is certainly far more different, and same with the CS80 filter. That being said, I have a Jupiter 6. I've got a JX3P, and I've got an Eisnen on the way. So like I have a lot of that Jupiter sound. I just got rid of a Juno 6 out of here recently. But what I don't have is I don't have a polyphonic ARP, So to me, I'm like, man, the ARP is a pretty cool one. And as Eric points out here, you do not have to do all your voices the same. If you want, you could have, one voice of each different filter, whatever you want. Like if you want to have one filter card that has that TB303 voice, you can do that. And then have, a bunch of other filters in there, whatever you want. There's one up on Reverb right now that I think is a 4 voice, and he's got different filters in each voice or something like that. That's definitely a thing you can do. Me personally, I think it would possibly drive me nuts. Like I feel like I want all my voices to have the same cards in there. But yeah, the ladder filter comes in there automatically. The Minimoog ladder filter comes in there automatically. The ARP ladder is, I believe, the diode ladder. But yeah, I want the CS80 for sure, and then I'm just kind of like on the fence as to whether or not I want to do ARP or Jupiter. I may end up doing the Jupiter just because it has a little bit more versatility. Because I'm pretty sure it's got 2 poles and possibly the high pass filter as well. I'm not sure. So we also didn't get into the pulse width on here. I'll show you that real quick. It's very nice pulse width on this thing. Let's go ahead and also show. I'm gonna do 2 triangle waves here, and we'll do the cross mod because this is always something that's hard to kind of get right in digital. So that's the oscillator cross mod there, and we'll do the VCF, which really the VCF I should have the filter down, resonance up. And it's good with some key tracking on it. course, if I just do this, and I'll switch cameras real quick. So that's always fun. That's just analog heat effects, and really all I'm adding in there is a tiny bit of clean boost, but really just the reverb on that. I had it off previously, but I wanted to show that, so let me bring it back here. So yeah, the cross mod on this synth sounds fantastic. Just sounds so good. And then you can do both at the same time. Let's bring so you're modulating with oscillator too, so I'm going to bring that up. So yeah, the cross mod is really nice, and I would say it's easier to use than on most of the other synthesizers that I own. I think it sounds better than the cross mod on the Prophet 5. I think it goes pretty close to crazy how the Jupiter 6 does, but it doesn't do it in the same way. Like it just sounds different. Just the way the oscillators respond against each other sounds different, which is really nice. So I really do enjoy that though. Just the ability that you have, and of course you can map that to mod wheels. You can map it to Aftertouch, whatever. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do this. Now in the LFO section here, so we can decide where we want our LFOs going. So right here, it's going to go, here, we'll bring it all the way back, start at the stop. So we can go to our frequency of oscillator 1, frequency of oscillator 2, 1 and 2, and then we have our levels. This is for the levels of the oscillators. Pulse width 1, 2, 1 and 2. Filter, resonance, which it's nice that resonance is in there because a lot of these synths do not give you resonance per modulation sources on there like that. And here we can kind of do. trying not to clip. I have the analog heat plus effects is up here, and if you notice, I'm mighty close to clipping that. So let me just see what I got going on. Well, I'll just take it down a notch. You can set your input gain on there, but the input gain on the heat plus effects and the Omega 8, like depending on what you're doing, because you can get such a wide dynamic range on there, it'll it can you got to kind of dial it in per patch, really. Speaking of what Paul's saying here, he says the synth would be evil in a 7.1 config. Two of them even eviler. Yeah. So each voice has its own set of stereo outputs and has its own set of stereo inputs of filter inputs on it as well. You can do some really crazy stuff with this synthesizer, especially if you patch it out to a complete system like that. So the fact that you can individually process your voices separately is pretty crazy. I don't do that just because I'm lazy in here and like I patch things up in other ways, but yeah, definitely cool. So now, let's send LFO2. We'll send over to pulse width 2. Give it this. Take the rate down a little bit and change it because it defaults as a square wave, which is a bit odd. See that? Take it down here. It's really hard to just not enjoy that. Like I honestly like today's my day off, so I'm in here just goofing off, and it's like, yeah, I just wanted to hear some Omega 8 today. Why not, right? It's an absurd piece of kit that as you dig into it, you're like, you just find all these sweet spots. And one thing, so let's get into things that irritate me. So I'm going to turn the oscillators down, right? So now we're not hearing anything, right? I'm going to turn the noise to max. I'll take the resonance down, filter all the way up. This is the one thing that really kind of gets me, that I'm like, I may have to see if there's a way to improve this a bit. Just one oscillator against the noise, and the noise almost gets lost. It's the only thing that I really like. I'm like, man, I wish the noise was louder. I wish I had more noise. Because then when I bring in two oscillators, it's just not very... Take that resonance off. That was the resonance modulation. So there's just not a lot of power behind the noise. You could still do nice noise sweeps with it, but if you're hoping to like get that kind of that wash over it, then that can be difficult. And Paul's asking if my noise is healthy. It's it's possible that it's not. Again, this is a 20-something-year-old Omega 8 that I have not sent in for calibration. So, and when I do that, Mark and Greg are kind of known for being meticulous about going over their units and making sure that everything is tip top and healthy. So it's possible that there may be something there that needs to be improved, but all the voices are like that. Like if I turn this down, noise up, and I go through each voice, they're all at roughly the same level. So that's why I don't think it's necessarily a calibration issue. I think that's just how the noise on this unit is. And what do other owners say? I don't see many of them talk about it. Truth be told, I don't think a lot of people use noise quite that heavily. But because I do sound design for a lot of a wide variety of things, sound effects and whatnot can be that can be especially important. But also what I like to do is just a quick patch example of something that I like to use noise for. So I like to kind of just dirty up really basic analog sounds with some noise, especially if it swells. Because when you take away the noise on a patch like that, still sounds nice, but it lacks that kind of like scratchy record, like broken heart kind of vibe. So I always like my kind of like somber sounds to have. If they don't start out with noise, I like them to have a aspect of noise that I can bring in, just to kind of make things feel like a little bit more dystopian and sad. So not just that typical wind or ocean sound. Just sometimes it's just nice to have things sound broken and ugly. So back to the LFOs here. Let me the noise, or excuse me, the random one here. I'm gonna just kind of give an example of sounds like on a frequency, because it's not quite the same as just like a noise. Take these out. Let's bring this up. And yeah, Paul, I agree. Like using noise obviously for percussion is a big one as well. Now, of course, with percussion, you know, you can kind of get away with lower noise volumes a little bit if you're not using a lot of other oscillators and that sort of thing. But for snare drums, yeah, man, like you need that noise power, you know. So let's see here. Let's do this. There we are. Making my sub very angry right now. Yeah. Yeah, making just like huge subby peaks with that filter is crazy. Yeah, so it's a very like, it can get very, very beefy. And again, that's without even doing like the inverted stuff. I mean, if I switch to this patch here. Now I started doing I have like a whole bank worth of sounds in here that I started working on. And I'll kind of give you some examples of how the variety kind of comes out of this thing. And this is great with like... Oh, and this is funny. So this patch right here is kind of my ode to Dave Spears. Which I haven't said anything to him about this, but yeah, so this patch is kind of my loose interpretation of his what is the name of his Oberheim 8 voice plugin? OBE. So yeah, that's that's my ode to Dave, and if you know Dave, you can tell him I said hi. But that is it's not often you hear like a vintage analog trying to emulate a VST that's emulating a vintage analog. Very meta. Go. I actually did a let's see if I can find it real quick. One thing that I like about this is I had read people saying that the Omega 8 was too clean, that it didn't break up, and it didn't have that kind of vintage analog drive sound to it, to which I thoroughly disagree. And this patch kind of shows you that. Because even though I'm using a SEM filter on this one, and which you don't typically associate with that breakup, you would more think of the mini style filter. That sucker is definitely driven. Now, that being said, if I wanted, I could turn this on, and then we'll go back to go to the flow one here. I'm going to turn off reverb and delay. So I just have heat, and then we'll take this to saturation. And then... get that, which is really fun. Just kind of using the heat in that way. So now I've got the saturation out of that mix now. Okay, just so I can step back to that really quick. And I love the sound of that sync. Just a ridiculous sounding synthesizer, man. Skip way back here. Unison. That's another thing is like you could do these really polite, happy, or somber, or even just soft sounds, and then you can also do like these massive, heavy, fill up the entire bandwidth bass. So that's one of those things that I really enjoy about this synthesizer, is that it's very easy to kind of you get just such a variety from like the most basic of things. So here's another one where you turn on some reverb and delay. Yeah, it's hard to not like that. Just a little bit of that. And you get like all these beautiful like movements going on between voices where, you know, if I play that high note on different voices, it comes out differently. Right? You see there it's more watery, and this next one is going to be much quicker, I think. Yeah. And the other thing that I notice is like, you know, and this is something that probably is going to be difficult to translate on YouTube, is in in the studio especially, and you know, obviously if you reproduce it to, you know, a nice digital recording, the low end is different between each voice. And when I say low end, I mean like the very sub low end can be different voice to voice, and it really gets some interesting things happening there between how you play things out. And me being the nerd that I am, like I kind of sat down with a pad and a pen for the first 2 weeks of owning this thing. And each day that I played it, I I had a tuner out, and I would, when I first turned it on, I'd write down all the tunings, you know, how many cents they were off from true tuning per voice, up and down. So like I would go the low octave, mid octave, and a high octave, and then do that for every voice, so that I knew what the variance was on each voice. And I did that over the course of about 2 weeks, just kind of getting to know the synthesizer. And that's heavily overkill that I don't think is for everybody. It's definitely not. But it helped me kind of understand how the synthesizer acts over time, because it wasn't just like I would turn it on, I would do that right away, and then middle of the session, when everything was good and warm, I would do that, and end of the session when it was like piping hot in here, and I had to turn on fans, and it's because it does get warm in the studio, especially during the summertime. But yeah, man, like the tuning variances between voices and everything are really like this kind of beautiful quirk in the synth that I really enjoy. Like you just hear like all these subtle like wobbles in between. Take that out and you hear it raw. And again, that's one of the things where it's like, can't really tell me it doesn't get raw and brutal, because it will. And this is an example where you can use the mod wheel on this to build things in. Give it some level back. Here we'll actually do this. Out. So you just get a little bit of saturation. And yeah, I will not be at KnobCon. However, I will be at some in-store events coming up very soon. I believe, I have to double check. I want to say it's like the 28th and 29th. I'm doing an in-store event with ASM at Chuck Levin's in Washington, D.C. And then after that, I'll be traveling to New Jersey and doing an in-store event at Three Wave Music And then I'll be traveling to Detroit and doing an in-store event in Detroit at Detroit Modular. I want to say right before KnobCon, and then I'll be at Chicago Music Exchange right around the time of KnobCon, maybe the weekend before. I'll be at Chuck Levin's. Let me see. I need to see a calendar real quick. Hold on. Let me see. I think I haven't exactly written it down yet. I want to say the 29th. Yeah, I think it's the 29th, which is a Tuesday. I'll be at Chuck Levin's in Washington D.C. So if you're in that area, please head out. It will be good fun, and we'll be having some good times. Oh man, yeah. Definitely bring everybody through, man, because it's gonna be a good time. And if I can get some swag out there to give away, I certainly will. You gotta love that. How's that sound with some reverb? Still a little bit on the fence about the analog heat plus effects as reverb. I want there to be more. Like, I want more varieties of reverb and more varieties of delay, like different algorithms. Definitely still fantastic as like an all-in-one box, having having all that good stuff in there. Just to show this again. So basically what I've got set up here is most of the time I've had this off, but when you hear me turn on reverb and whatnot, I'm using it through here. So you just press active, and you can turn each individual effect on and off, and it gives you like a whole chain of effects on there. But the only thing I have on is heat, which is really, I'm just using it for a little bit of clean boost here, and then delay and reverb at the end. But what you can also do is you could do stuff like if I turn this on, sample rate reduction, which is quite cool. And Eric says he's been running his code through the Chase Bliss reverb, their 1978 reverb. So some differences here between the Omega 8 and the Code 8. If you look this up online to try to find an Omega 8 to buy, you'll see that there's two different versions. There's the Omega 8, and then there's the Code 8. And the difference is, and this isn't an advertisement, I'm in no way affiliated with Studio Electronics. I think they're great people, and I love their synthesizers. But other than that, that's the extent of it. It's just me on my day off having fun with the synthesizer that I own. But yeah, so the Omega 8 has triangle waves in it, right? Whereas the Code 8, I believe the first oscillator is a sine wave as opposed to a triangle wave. Also, the other difference is this has an arpeggiator built in. On the Code, this is a filter controller section. I also don't know for sure if the filter control section is just for the incoming filter stuff, like, because you can process external audio all through there. I don't know if it allows you to do a smooth sweep between the state variable filters of the CS80 or not. Eric, can you chime in on that a little bit as far as what the filter control section does? in this base, like the layout looks identical. It's just the silk screen is different and what it does is different. So this is not an arpeggiator, it's a filter control area. um have a good night, Andrew. um but yeah, like they're both, I mean, like they're essentially the same synthesizer except one has a sine wave in it and a different control section, whereas this is both triangle waves. And I get my sine waves the old-fashioned way, which is, of course, just doing um, this stuff here. Old school sine waves, filter resonance. If you get one of each, I congratulate you because financially you're doing very well for yourself. So now I'm just goofing off. I love making effect sounds. It's just fun. Alright, so let's get out of that. And we'll go back to here. So, one thing I want to show you something about this is if you, I'm shutting it all the way down real quick because I just want to clear something out. I know that right about, here we are. So one of the things about this that I've noticed is the way that the release works on these is just like the curve of it. It just has this really beautiful release curve on these. It's not super exponential or anything. It's just kind of... And of course, if you do tie that in with a reverb, you get these really nice. So yeah, Eric says that on the filter control, yeah, it lets you do a clean sweep of those filters. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. That's something that I think I may have modified on mine as well. Because again, like this stuff is all built by hand, and they're a very small company. Like they're pretty open to basically doing. If you got the money, they'll do what you want. that's really what it comes down to. Is if you got the money, they're willing to work. So you can get custom face plates and all kinds of cool stuff. My good friend Just Blaze just did a custom Oberheim style faceplate on his, and he had a custom logo done and everything on it, and it's really cool, man. And he did the ARP filters in his with the CS80, the SEM and Minimoog in there, and but had the panel done up so it looks very similar to like a cream style SEM or 8-voice kind of looking thing, and it's just very very cool. And I believe he has the triangle waves, but he did get the filter selection stuff set up in there. So very cool stuff. And if you go on their website, you'll see some of the custom designs they've done. Just gorgeous sounding. You see there, I'm using some of that noise to kind of swell in and break things up a little bit, and you know. Yeah. So anyway, I think I'll call that a day. And my plans for today is to try to relax, not think about work, just have a good time. Going to play some Street Fighter 6. I will be doing that. And what else? Yeah, just chilling. So hit me up. And like I said, if you're around Chuck Levins on, I think, don't hold me 100% to it, but I'm pretty sure Chuck Levins is the 29th. And then 3-Wave is going to be the 30th. And I'm not 100% sure on the Detroit and Chicago dates. I want to say like 7th and 8th or something like that. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely going to figure it all out. So, yeah, I want you all to have a wonderful weekend and your week to be fantastically incredible. Yeah, make that happen for yourself. Stay healthy and all that.